We are on a mission.
A mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy.
On the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast,
You will get actionable business advice
hear stories from industry leaders,
and share a laugh with us.
fuel your passion for pharmacy.
One conversation at a time.
Hello, Sam and Mark.
How are y'all doing?
Alias as guest 4 and guest 5. So, Sam, you're a guest 4. Mark, you're a guest 5. So,
All right.
if I refer to you as
to you guys.
if I refer to you as guest 4, I know who you are.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome.
just not personal. That's just like
Just reading what's down there.
I know,
I've never noticed
but
anything down there before. It's like guest 4 and guest 5.
this is like, see, Sam's like a family friend. Like
Guest
it's like
4
the
and guest
uncle
5
that
that
you see
entered the
once a year
building.
at family reunions.
That's right.
Because I've as long as I've been doing trade shows with Pioneer and working with Pioneer, you've been a constant figure.
That's true. Where were you who were you working for when we first got together? Was that Change?
So I was tracking you down. I was fairly new to LBM at the time. So, and Pioneer was new because I was working with New Tech at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you were new. So it was around the 2010, 2009,
Yes,
2010.
it was 2010 because our first trade show was 2010.
Was that NCPA in Nashville?
It was.
Yeah,
And I
all
think you had rented out like a suite at the top because it was Gaylord Opryland, and you had rented like one of those big suites at the top and was hosting some big cocktail party up there.
Mm-hmm.
What made that so unique, Marsha, was we had, and remember back then there was a lot more PMS vendors out there. And we invited all of our clients. And so we had a hospitality suite with most people that competed with each other all in one room.
Yeah.
And everybody was getting
Yep.
along. It was really interesting.
Kind of like in
It was-
Chicago
usually when
when they
there's-
brought together all the mob bosses,
Well-
and everybody's kind of looking at each other.
That I don't think
looking
that
at
went
each other.
over as well as you think, because the wall is sitting up in Vegas at the Mob Museum, the St. Valentine's Day wall. But
Yeah, if
yeah,
anybody come and dressed as police, I'd have been out of there.
but yeah,
I had that one
I
figured out.
remember
That's awesome.
Richard Brooks was there because
Yep.
he was walking around. He's like, hey, I want to introduce you to this person. I want to,
Yeah.
typical in good fashion, Richard Brooks.
Richard,
So-
he came up because we were giving out little invites to our suite, and he actually came up to me. He wasn't on my list. I wasn't working with him, and he's looking at me like, "How can you be so disrespectful?" I'm like,
What?
"What are you talking about?"
Oh
Richard?"
no! See, it is the
He goes-
mob. He's like, so.
Exactly,
Sam,
He's like, "Wait a minute,
Why are you
having-"
disrespecting me?
Exactly.
See, we left
Like
off the
you're-
guy from the north side,
So at the time, I said, "Here," I gave him the
who's a
invite,
contract killer.
and not only did he show up, he brings Paul Hooper and
Yep.
Oh, I remember Paul.
Oh gosh, one other person that started that script. Anyway, it was Adam Tremmel. If you guys remember him, he was part
I
of
don't think so.
whatever it was called back then. Was it Change Hub before Change Hub? What was MDI?
ERX. It was
MDI.
MDION, and then it went to
Yeah.
Change, and then
MDI went to ERX, then went to
okay,
Change,
I
then
thought
went back
because
to
I thought
ERX.
it went to Change. Oh, that's right. It was ERX Change, then back to ERX.
Helped ERX
Okay.
get started. They started kicking their butt. They bought ERX, then became ERX. Then
Right,
Change to Changed, then split off and became ERX again, and then came
Yep.
back to Change and used the name ERX.
Yep. Good memory, Jeff.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's pretty
Yep.
close.
And now they're Optum.
I know.
Optum.
Yeah.
They were at Cardinal in a Optum booth. Letters like this big. I'm like,
Nice.
Jeff has switched from green tea to Diet Cokes, and so he's getting that caffeine boost
Uh-oh.
and the sugar. So he's been a chatty Cathy the past few mornings.
really?
I'm just laying it out there because you
Just because I
keep
keep
inter-
talking? This is a podcast?
yeah, but
This is
interrupting
desirable.
and not letting Sam finish is
I'm sorry.
No,
We have to
let's
keep it
bring it down.
interactive.
I'm used to that. I love it.
We have
I love
to
it.
keep it interactive. Nobody's allowed to talk
Yep.
very long.
See?
Quick question to you, Jeff. Why aren't we going to see you in San Diego in a couple weeks?
San Diego is TSC.
Mark Bivins is going, and Tim Carroll, along with Mike McManus and Mike Bettini.
Okay.
this is our only 4 or 5 days in the office.
Yeah.
And then we're back on the road. We fly out Monday, we come home Sunday. Then you guys turn around and fly out Monday, come home Wednesday. And then Mark flies out Friday.
So Mark and Tim are kind of working on that upmarket in the pharmacy world. And Mike are kind of working on pharma and that kind of market. So we went back and forth. One Direction's playing. We were like, we really should go. But a lot of times for us, that show, we're looking for
Did you say One Direction?
Oh, I saw it.
did.
One Republic. The other one.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
It's like One Direction's not a thing anymore. But yeah, I would love to see Harry Styles. I'm just putting it out there.
Yep. One Republic.
You had me on One Direction. I forgot it. Yeah, it is One Republic. That's true. Think of the question, what is your favorite song? Okay. I mean, just in general, what is your favorite song? And you'll think about it forever. And a week from now, you're going to say, oh, I forgot about this song. Or you'll hear something
is this
else.
like forever or like currently?
Well, just your favorite song of all time. Is there such
all time?
Right,
Wow.
Right. That question's going to stick in your head for a long time. And as you hear songs.
There's songs like going through my head right now. And I'm just like, yep, love that one. Ooh, love that one too.
Right.
But,
what was the first one though? What was the first song that popped into your mind? Favorite song?
Well, honestly, because of if you think about the whole mind game monopoly thing of it is, we're talking about One Republic. So I ain't worried about a thing. The Top Gun track song.
That's your favorite song of all time?
Right now it is because it's what we're talking about.
Is that because of the salacious scene there in Top Gun? You thinking about
you're
thinking about the shirtless guys, playing in the see. So InfiniTrak. Do y'all have a theme song?
Just ready to talk work now. Okay. Business.
Do we have a theme song? Y'all built a theme, InfiniTrak?
That's a darn good question.
Do we have an acronym? I cannot. Every time I'm asked, do you know DC whatever? Can you know the initials?
DSCS?
DSCSA.
DSCSA.
I can never, anytime I'm called on the spot to talk about it, I can't remember. We need to come up with an acronym, like something for each letter.
I think that is the acronym.
No. We need to come up with something for each letter. What do they call that? When you do a memory by putting words on the
DSCSA.
I bet we could have AI do that.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I actually was talking to a pharmacy yesterday, leaving a message, and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I do DS," and I've said it 100 times. I say it 100 times a day.
Yep.
And my mind went blank.
Yeah, I know. Like, as you get older, you just when you want it doesn't come. When you don't want it, it's
I literally had to write it down so I could say it. I'm like, wow, so DSCSA.
Y'all should have something fun. I think that you should have something fun for the DSCSA. Ooh. If you could come up with something that means what they're trying to do, like check that jurisdictional box. So what's going on in the DC?
What's new?
Any new? Do y'all know anything from any insider stuff about DCSA? Do you think they're still going to, is November still the date for the retailers? You think they're going to give the retailers a little grace?
There's a lot of discussion around so many different pieces. As you know, the stakeholders in the industry are the manufacturers, the wholesalers, and the pharmacies. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the pharmacies have the tools or have resources to the tools to be compliant. It's the other two stakeholders, or especially the wholesalers, pushing back that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So there's a lot of
well, the manufacturers, there are manufacturers who don't even have the 2D barcodes and stuff today, right?
Well, that's Mark. I'll let you talk to that. I think that's done. That part is done.
Well, that was supposed to be done by 2018.
Yeah.
It's pretty much done. I just was on a call yesterday with the pharmacy that said they had some product without 2D barcodes, but that was the first I'd heard of it for a long time. But if they don't have them done, then there's a real problem. You're right, Jeff.
So when they say that the manufacturers are behind, it's not necessarily the 2D barcode. It's sending the data about that.
Right. It's getting the data in an APSIS format, setting it down the line, being able to do product verification and product tracing. That whole package of interoperability. That's what they're behind on. They have the labels. It's just about the full electronic tracking. But everybody's in a sprint to try to get it done. But there are people who are saying, not quite.
So just give us the 90 second for somebody who might be living under a rock and just came out to watch our podcast. Huh? It was good.
There we go.
Of what is DSCSA and how is it going to affect the pharmacy?
So, Drug Supply Chain Security Act is creating a secure supply chain from the manufacturer to the dispenser to increase patient safety, keep bad drugs out of the supply chain, keep harmful drugs out of the supply chain. And it's basically tracking that product so you can verify that not only the trading partner is who they say they are, but the drug is what it says it is. So you're removing any possibility of harm for the patients. Some people ask whether it's really needed, whether dispensers have to participate. But the last big counterfeit event that was in the papers, that Gilead event, that a lot of drug got into the supply chain that was counterfeit. It went through a secondary, and it was caught by a dispenser. A dispenser caught that drug.
How did they catch it?
Counterfeit. Well, they had a patient who talked about their reaction to the drug. They looked at the data they had, and then they said, "We think there's a problem with this drug." And they caught that there was a huge amount of product in the supply chain that was dangerous to their patients.
So not only was it counterfeit, but it was not the right drug. It wasn't.
Right. It was a counterfeit. Yes,
but it was bad counterfeit. It wasn't accurate counterfeit. It was a counterfeit, and it wasn't the actual drug.
Exactly.
Right.
The other red flag that kicked in was the actual price. It was extremely lower than the regular price, so that raised red flags as well.
Right.
Right. Exactly. So, and that brings up an important point that dispensers are really the firewall for the Drug Supply Chain Security Act. If the dispensers aren't there active, then you're not going to catch counterfeit drugs. And the dispensers and the pharmacists, they're the ones with the experience, the judgment to catch these things. They're really protecting patients' safety with this law, and they're key to it all working well, quite frankly. So.
Yeah, so the DSCSA is the U.S. drug supply chain is the safest in the world by far. This is just to help manage the fact that just to help weed out any chance of getting counterfeit or illegitimate products into the supply chain, because it's all over the streets with the fentanyl issues and whatnot. I mean, there's issues out there. It's keeping the pharmaceutical drug supply clean from that. And just with that being said, this was December of 2020 that this Gilead issue happened. So it's very recent. So that's where it's all put together.
And to add to the people who might be living under a rock, not that they are.
They're out of a rock because now they're listening to our podcast.
Or they might not necessarily go to trade shows and learn about these things going on. So what is the effective date when all of this stuff is supposed to actually take into effect and be affecting their potentially working their workflow?
So it's been phased in multiple phases. So today there's pieces of DSCSA that the pharmacies are supposed to be doing. Things like making sure that they only order from licensed or suppliers with a valid license, making sure that they receive all of the data with the product, it's accurate, complete, and store that for 6 years. Make sure you have a procedure in place today that outlines what to do if you receive an illegitimate product or a suspect, something that is damaged or it's a wrong shaped pill or it looks different than the normal, whatever. What is your procedure for quarantining that? Those are little pieces that should be in place today.
Okay.
Going to November 27, 2023 of this year, obviously, the interoperability kicks in, and that is the traceability piece of it, which is the most complicated portion of it as well. Mark, I'll turn it over to you to add.
With that interoperability phase, we go from lot level tracking to product level tracking. Every product will have its own unique serial number, and the intent is to track all those drugs throughout the supply chain. We're collecting serial numbers of course, expiration dates, lot numbers, all of that information to be able to track that drug specifically. And we're putting guards in place like product verification to be able to verify that that drug you're about to sell is the drug that the manufacturer made, to make sure it's not a counterfeit.
So when I get my order,
yes.
I will scan each bottle in.
Yep, you scan that bottle. That barcode has that unique serial number for that bottle that that you can confirm that's what it is and what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, we had somebody going around at Cardinal saying, hey, their feature was that you could receive your order without having to scan it.
I don't see how that's
and I would say, that's not an advanced feature. That's a wrong feature.
That's asking for an audit.
Well, no, that's just wrong. So you scan it.
For trouble.
If something is missing, right? I flag it. I'm somehow going to tell your software, hey, these were the ones that were wrong, right? When I scan it, and then I set them to the side, and then what happens?
Well, the first thing you do is you try to get a replacement data for that product.
Okay.
If there's something missing I'm sorry, Jeff. If something's missing in the data set,
right?
You try to get replacement
So you
data.
sit down and it says this serial number, and I have a different serial number.
Right.
It got picked and scanned wrong. And so what's going to happen? Am I going to, that one that I actually have, so I've basically told your software, I got this one, I didn't get this one. Is your software going to send it in and try to get the wholesaler to reconcile that?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we call exceptions.
Okay.
Either receiving a product without data or data without a product. And those are you need to take action on those immediately. You need to get the data from the wholesaler for the product if you don't have the data. And you have to do a product verification to make sure it is what it is. Those exceptions are going to happen more often with interoperability because we're moving from using EDI data feed to this EPSIS data feed, which is a big jump for the industry. And there's going to be more mistakes, and those exceptions will be happening, and you need to be taking care of those.
Yeah, I remember one of the big things that Morrison Dixon, when we were part of them, hung their hat on was very high accuracy of orders, right? They would scan all their orders, where a lot of wholesalers so there definitely is, and I'm telling people I'm talking to, you know this, right? You get inaccuracies in your orders sometimes, right? And so when that happens, now, how fast is that going to be? So I got the wrong bottle, and it sends it back to your software. Does somebody have to physically do something at the other side, or do you look at the data over there and say, oh, yeah, no, they have it?
Well, it depends on what the problem is. Well, ideally, we can fix the problem by the end of the day so you don't have to quarantine the product for a long time. Initially, what you're going to do is talk to the wholesaler trading partner, get the correct data for that product. But if you can't get the correct data for that product, then it may actually be a counterfeit.
Okay,
so you need to counterfeit and report to the FDA.
Yeah, so talking to the wholesaler, does that mean I'm picking up my phone and I'm calling the wholesaler, or am I talking through your software?
Talking to the software.
Okay, so the software is telling the wholesaler, hey, I don't have data for these items, and I don't have items for this data. Basically, they picked it wrong, right? They put the wrong thing. They scanned one and put a different one in the tote, right?
Or it could be something missing. There could be something that was taken out of the tote accidentally, or
something fell out.
Right.
So in that case, they just need to remove that from my order and resend it.
Right. So the FDA has said that for the missing product with exceptions, they'd like that reported. They'd like you to keep track of that in case it's actually a case of people stealing drugs out of those totes, so they can track down the theft of the drug.
That delivery driver,
So what happens today is sometimes I get the wrong product. So let's say they picked the wrong product, they scanned it right. So I got all the data matches, but they sent me the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right. And they picked it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully your software helped them figure that out. So the software has a method too I say, hey, I'm sending this back to my wholesaler.
Well, we communicate directly with the wholesaler, say, I'm sending this back. So that handles the compliance part of it, and so make sure that you're sending it back, and it was a wrong pick, or you need the proper data. so you can keep it within your system.
All right. So I am a model where let's just say the Moose Drug model, right? I have multiple Moose Drugs pharmacies. They're named. They're partially owned by the same person, right? I go help people start pharmacies, and I own a portion of that pharmacy, or maybe like an Osborne model. And so this is a partially owned model, and I'm going to move a drug from one pharmacy to the other. How do I do that?
So in order to move a drug from one pharmacy to the other, you need to actually create that T3 data and send it with the drug. Our platform has a tool that creates that data for you.
Okay.
Both with the history that we've gathered with the serialized data that's been sent, and actually the trading partner information and sending it to that other pharmacy. Now, you said they're partially owned by. If they're commonly held, you don't have to track them between the pharmacies.
All right, so let's say that if I fully own them, they're not different LLCs.
Right.
You're not.
Then I don't have to track it. I can just move it.
Don't have to track it. You also don't have to track it if it's a patient specific drug. So if one pharmacy has an emergency that Jeff needs amoxicillin, needs it right now, I don't have it in my inventory, you can reach out to another pharmacy and get that drug for that patient specific purchase, and you don't have to track it. But any other situation, you
right.
do
So if
have
it's specific, like if it comes in the dispensing size and I get it from them for that, don't have to. Still might be a good practice to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of these models where they're partially owned, they're different LLCs and there's a structure, and I think that's probably so. But in your software, I can say, hey, I'm taking this bottle and I'm sending this bottle to X pharmacy over there, and then they're going to get the proper deal and receive it just like it came from a wholesaler.
Exactly.
They'll get the proper data. Yeah. Okay.
And the same way, if it's wrong, they can send it back, and all that stuff's gonna work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now keep in mind with DSCSA, it stops when, because there's a lot of confusion as far as, well, does it go down to the patient? Do I have to track it down to the patient? DSCSA stops when the pharmacy takes ownership of the product. So once it hits the warehouse, and then if you're a chain, it hits the warehouse and then you distribute it, you don't need to track it. It's when you take ownership is when it stops.
Is that November 27th? DSCSA stops at the pharmacy, and in the future it's going to stop at the patient? Is there any laws today that have a future date where I'm going to need to track serial dispensing to the patient?
No.
That's
a common misconception. People think that we're going to eventually track to the patient, but it's just tracking to the dispenser when it changes ownership. Once it's dispensed, tracking is not happening.
Our recommendation to our pharmacies is to start doing that. Right. If we import in, now that's the difference. Somebody asked today, what's the difference between integrated and non-integrated method? Integrated could mean we could bring those files on in and know, or even today, Pioneer, you can scan the 2D barcode and it'll store the serial number. It's not tracking inventory by serial number, but it'll store it. And that it gets you easy. There are reasons to dispense by lot and expiration, and that 2D barcode gets you that. So the serial number kind of gets you for free. So there would be value out there for people using that 2D barcode to dispense to a patient.
I agree. There's a great deal of value. If you have a problem with a drug or a recall, you can tell exactly where it is, what patient has it, and you can advise them. I mean, the whole system is about increasing patient safety. So if you can use the system to reach the patient directly if there's a problem, then there's an enormous amount of value, I think.
And really cool value, and be able to say, hey, I know the profit I made on that pill. Right, I know what that.
You're right.
I know what that serial number bottle cost me. I know what I dispensed for it. I really have that type of. We could probably talk all day about replacement cost versus average cost paid and that kind of stuff. But certainly interesting, especially with high variability of, hey, this month I may buy generic at this price, and next month I may buy at twice the price, and average gets kind of weird.
Yeah,
Be that way. Well, it's cool. So what do you guys? So I call you guys on November 25th, and you get me set up, and I'm ready to go on November 27th, right?
So yeah, let's back up and be realistic.
When
hey,
20,000 pharmacies call you.
I want to start doing this, and no, you should have done. So what is the setup timeline look like? I mean, is it different per state, like STC, or is it just you sign up and then there's like a 3-month process?
So there are the process is unique by pharmacy or chain or what have you. Okay. It's all based on your suppliers. So when the pharmacy signs up for our service, the first thing we do is get a listing of their suppliers. Who do you buy from? Your primary, your secondary, even those that you purchase from a couple times a year or not as often. We get a list of all those suppliers. We're currently connected to well over 300 suppliers, and that number is growing each day. So what we do is we reach out to each supplier. In many cases, we're already working with them, and we set up today an EDI connection. So when that pharmacy places the order, we get the T3 data or the 856, which is the electronic data for that product to store. That is where the time is spent, is how long does it take to build those connections with each of the suppliers.
Okay, so
the big guys, they turn around pretty quickly. Yeah.
So I sign up with you, and you have all but one of my suppliers that you're currently talking to, and you're getting the data back and forth. Can I still sign up? Or are you going to have to wait until you get the data from that other supplier?
You just after November 27th, you can't get product from that
you
other
just can't
one
get product
until you.
From that other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's like, and that would be like a secondary wholesaler.
Yeah. Okay. And so you've got to find a new supplier.
Well, we have those 300 or so connections. Some of them we don't have connections for because none of our customers has requested it yet.
Right.
They're not going to make that connection unless there's a purchase happening. We're able to connect to all the suppliers. It's just a matter of when the customer makes
finding
that
a
request.
Customer, right. We get that. Finding a customer, like, we're not going to do this integration with this product unless we have a mutual customer using you.
I think it's important to remember that time frame when you're signing up. There's a time frame for implementation, but then there's a time frame for working with your staff to make sure they're applied,
right.
they're
operationalize
doing it properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not a big bang. So really, people should be doing this today.
They should start practicing it today.
I know we were the guys, the Red Cell guys were super excited. They had 1,000 people sign up for the webinar on DSCSA, and I was like, yes, but that should have been 9,000. Yes, that's way more than normal. Normally maybe we have 100 people on a webinar, so it should have been 10,000.
By the way, Jeff, that was a really, really good webinar. It was just this week, and the phones and we got inundated.
Nice.
We're up to at least, I know it's not 9,000 yet, but the goal is to get as many. We had we're up to almost 250. I don't have the actual number, about 250 pharmacies already queued up to get set up.
Well, and the message there, it needs to be 10,000.
Yeah,
you're right.
This isn't optional for anybody.
It's not optional.
Exactly.
And so, pigging back onto the initials. So, one, we are 4 months down and counting until this goes live, which is scary. So what is the last deadline where it's going to be hard to get somebody signed up? Like Jeff said, it's November 25th and I call you and say, turn it on, get me, what would you say is the last deadline before November 27th when you can make something happen for a pharmacy or get them going on the program?
Sure. Mark, let me start on that, and then you could finish from your standpoint. That's a hard question to answer because
you don't know how many people are going to wait.
Right.
The pipeline or the backlog is just building so much.
So they said inundated with 250 people. So if 2,500 people had called, that would be a problem.
And we're putting in the resources to be able to do that, but it was just a one day boom. That webinar was so successful is what I'm getting at based on the number of people that signed up versus signed up for the webinar versus come in and then register for the service.
There also is some number I have to have, right? I have to have a number that I have to get.
A GLM number, yeah.
GLM number. And there seems to have been some confusion with that. Because some of the wholesalers had gotten one for me.
So it's a global location number.
Okay.
Market. Yeah, I mean, this is, it inside out. So
it's a global location number. It's basically a digital address for your pharmacy. And everybody's going to need to have one in order to receive product, because the computer systems will identify you by that digital address, which is a GLN. Now, the industry and GS1 and the wholesalers realize that getting all the independent pharmacies signed up on GLNs is going to be a heavy lift. So many wholesalers, not many, McKesson, Cardinal, ABC, and Smith decided to buy blocks of GLNs and assign them to their customers. Okay. So they had a GLN, so they don't have a problem, as we move into interoperability. So, but
if I'm using multiple suppliers, is my GLN going to be different per supplier?
That's a great question. The answer is no. Okay. The GLN is unique to your pharmacy, and all the wholesalers will be sharing those GLNs, and they'll be it's like the address to your house.
Right.
Where
but
are you
I could have got assigned to, right?
Right.
Let's say I'm buying from McKesson and Parmed. I could have been assigned to and not supposed to. Is that correct?
Correct. That's exactly
right. Good.
That's happening. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So they're So I'm buying from McKesson. I switch to Amerisource.
Well, that's happening too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's happening too. So instead of going, great, you're a new pharmacy, you need a GLN. Are they running a query to see if you've already been assigned a GLN?
They should be. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
GS1 has a database that they all have access to. We have access to. When we sign on a customer, we first look and see if they have a GLN and if they have multiple GLNs.
Right.
Okay, so that was my next question. Where do I get my identifying number to be able to give that to you? But you guys are able to already query
Y'all
that.
can look it up. I got you.
Yes.
So it's not hey, I need to do this first before I call you. I can call you. You can look up my number.
Not only do we do that, we'll also recommend, if they have multiple, which one to use.
Now, if I call you and I don't have a number, can you get me a number?
We can help you walk through that.
Yeah, that's part of our implementation process. We can help you get the number from GS1, but that GS1 is the one that issues a number, so we just help you get it from them.
And how long does that take?
That's done pretty darn fast.
Pretty darn fast.
Minutes.
All right.
So there is a fee. There's a $30 one-time fee to sign up. That's why GS1 wants the pharmacies to do the actual signing up.
Okay.
But it's very, very quick.
So now that this is becoming part of the ordering process, is this something that pharmacies are going to have to, well, I don't have one. This is the number that was assigned to me from DSCA or from InfiniTrak. Eventually these are going to have to be consolidated if there's multiple out there for one pharmacy, right?
Yes. So when you look at the GS1 database, these GLNs, if there's numerous ones, they have a priority of which ones to start with.
Okay.
But eventually they're going to have to clean it up now. But
why didn't they use NCPDP or NPI or use a number we already had rather than creating a new number?
A good question, because they didn't talk to Jeff Kiefers.
Okay. Good point. Thank you, podcast guest number 5.
The GS1 is designed it's for serialization, and it's linked to an address.
Okay.
Physical
address.
So it's more for tracking exactly what that is.
Okay.
GS1. So
I'm just going to go ahead and pause and put this out there for anybody listening or
go ahead and pause and put this out there.
If you're going to keep calling them podcast guest 4 and podcast guest 5, let's go ahead and clarify who is who. So podcast guest 4 on the screen is Sam Pizzo,
and 5 is Mark.
And 5 is Mark.
Okay,
Thank you. I've just got to put that clear because I'm using your names. Otherwise, it's just going to be funny if somebody walks up to you at NACDS or at NCPA and goes, "Hey, podcast guest number 5."
When they edit it, they can put that over. That when I say it, they can put it over their face.
It's gonna show Sam Pizzo.
It's like
podcast
Mark,
guest number 4.
podcast guest number 5. Sam, podcast guest number 4.
Yes.
That's funny. That is funny.
Okay, so also going to throw this out there, kind of add to our listeners and viewers and watchers. So we love you. But if you are interested in watching the webinar, it is on PioneerRx University. So because we do them live and then we repost them on Pioneer University. So if anybody wants to see
for all
it,
Red Cell, it's there.
Yeah, for all of Red Cell PioneerRx users, it's on PioneerRx University. So if you want to watch this and get more information, what is some other stuff that we should be sharing with them? So who should they, what website should they go to? Who should they ask for?
And for the rest of the people who haven't yet joined.
And for the rest of the
rest of the Red Cell family, where they belong, then
who might not necessarily use
where could they learn?
Pioneer?
Because there are other people. You can buy InfiniTrak through other things, through buying groups and things like that. So where would they go for that information?
Where's a good starting point?
From you guys.
www.InfiniTrak, that is INFINITRAK.
No CK. Just a K.
Let's see.
.us.
Okay.
So you go in and you can schedule a demo, or you can go straight in and register. There's different levels. So if you're not Red Cell, you can, and then you are part of a different group that we are partnered with, whether it's another software vendor or a GPO or what have you.
Yep.
There is a list that they'll have that they can choose from if they're part of one of those groups. And that will get them into the page that has the information that is pertinent to the relationship of InfiniTrak and that group. If they're not associated with anyone, there's just a generic landing page that they can navigate all within that website to sign up.
Fantastic.
Does that help?
Yep. Is the product mature? Do you have a product roadmap? Is there different stuff coming in the future? If you said, hey, do y'all have ideas of things you're going to do later on, they're going to add to this, value add, maybe things that'll be an add-on or something they can purchase more, what would those be?
So yeah, we're working on some more value add stuff for the platform now. We haven't really announced them yet.
Maybe a teaser, verification router service.
Okay. What does that do? What does verification routing service do?
But it verifies the products. If you need to verify a product, it's part of the serialization is being able to verify the exact product by either scanning or sending the serialized data to make sure that it's identical to what the manufacturer made. So, and that the VRS, Verified Router Service, makes that communication instantaneous to the manufacturer. You get a result back in seconds, so you don't have to quarantine a product for any period of time. You get an answer on whether it's a counterfeit immediately.
So there are people, other people providing this service. One of the people at Cardinal who provides this service was touting that there are other things that can be wrong in the data file. That's an auditor problem risk, and that their software scans for other problems in the data file. Is that a thing? Do you guys do that too?
We do that too. We do that too. As we're receiving that data, our system scans that data to make sure all the elements that are required for compliance are in that data, in that transaction.
Okay.
And if it's not, then our system produces a flag for the product, and we'll send you an email alert saying this product is missing some data.
Okay.
And then we what you should do in that event is get new data from the trading partner. Some people will say you need to correct it, but that's not true. You need to get new data because all this data has to be unadulterated as it comes from the manufacturer to the dispenser.
Right. So in the software, you'll need to request, you guys will know the data was mangled and you will request new data. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
New data and request that you hold that product until we get the new data for you, which can happen instantaneously. Well, not instantaneously, but can happen very quickly.
Gotcha.
So as long as you know it's missing. So, and our system tells you that.
Okay, so as we're coming kind of close to the end of this, I do want to throw one more as far as going back to.
Doing a lot of throwing today.
I do a lot, yes.
I do a lot of throwing. Just throw it out. I'm just throwing it out
Softball
there.
days.
I'm just throwing it out there.
They're softballs. They're softballs.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've got the website. I'm reaching out to you to get signed up on the program. What is some information I need to be prepared and have in hand
out my name
that you guys are going to ask for? And I'm going to be like, okay, let me look that up.
So we're going to ask you obviously for your location, your pharmacy license. We're going to ask you for your trading partners with their account numbers. And we're going to ask you for a list of users that you want to have access to the system. Those are kind of the key bits of information. Most important of which is those trading partners and your account numbers for those trading partners. So they're going to make that connection and start receiving the data as quickly as possible.
But there's not going to be any questions about what pharmacy software I'm using because you're connecting with all of them?
I'm sorry. There is going to be a key question of what your pharmacy software is.
That's a great point because we actually just updated our service for Red Cell as well, because we were getting, the signups we have a drop down that says, what is your PMS? So is it Pioneer? Is it QS1? Is it Prime or Prime Care or Access? We're getting a lot of blanks. So we actually now made it that's a mandatory field to do before you move forward. So we know which system you're running.
What about these groups that help me split the order up? Things like Cherry Pick or EsriRx or something like that my order might get solved by several different wholesalers. Are you working with that like Cherry Pick, or are you working, is that going to come from the wholesalers through the Cherry Pick? Or are you going to, because they've been doing a lot of work to create an EDI where they order looks like, they can send us a consolidated EDI. Are they going to consolidate the DSCSA form? Woo!
It's right there on the screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Stop telling my secrets. Go ahead.
So it depends on which one you're talking to, but we resolve that by getting that data either from that entity or the wholesalers that they're working with. Esri, we get it directly from them. So we have to connect to the wholesalers that they're working with. But you're right, that's a challenge. But we were able to receive all that data.
To add to your question too, Jeff, adding in outside of those types of connections, 340Bs.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mark, you want to touch on that real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so 340Bs, it gets a little bit complicated, but essentially the data is sent to two places, to the covered entity and to the contract pharmacy.
Okay.
And actually the GLNs help a lot with that because every entity actually has two GLNs, a GLN that's a bill to and a GLN that's a ship to. And the one we really care about is the ship to because we're tracking the product. But in that case, they would send a set of data to the bill to covered entity, and then the set of data to the ship to entity, which is a contract pharmacy. It gets a little bit confusing making those connections, and it's a little bit more work. But you have to, it's important that you're doing it.
Yeah. So I guess if hopefully everybody listening to this is getting. The time to do this is now.
Yes.
There could be some complications depending on how you're ordering. If you're using, Cherry Pick, some type of aggregator, if you've got multiple numbers out there, this isn't a thing that you're going to call on the 15th of November and they're going to turn on. Okay. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you when you're one of 5,000 people calling on November 15th. So you need to do this today. It's not going to get postponed. It's going to happen.
Yep.
The time to do this is now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, I guess we won't see you. You guys going to be AmeriSource? Who's going to be at AmeriSource?
No, we're not doing that this year.
No, not doing that this year.
But NCPA in October.
We'll be at NCPA.
Okay.
Yes, we will be at NCPA. So we will be at NACDS Total Store Expo in a couple weeks. And then our next one will be NCPA Annual at Orlando. So that'll be our next one.
So AI-generated dancing squirrels can swing awesome. So...
All right,
guys, it was fun. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Always good to see you, Sam.
Sam and Mark.
Podcast guest 4 and 5.
I can do it. Podcast guest 4 and 5. Heard it here first.
Be taught.
You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
All right. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more pharmacy professionals like you.